a hold of some of our World War II vets and see if they'd sit on a panel, as a panel discussion, and share some thoughts about things that we probably wouldn't even be thinking about. And so I asked the child at the end down there, I said, you were a little kid when these guys were inactive. Would you care to sit with them, and you may have perspective of what happened in places like Hortonville, Wisconsin? You know, when the world was the way it was, things were very different in the home front.
Especially in Bean City.
So anyway, this is the invitation that went out. On behalf of your fellow veterans, this was addressed to each of the people that have been asked to be the council. On behalf of your fellow veterans from Post 55, I am asking you and your fellow World War II veterans to be our guests of honor at the American Legion Veterans Day Dinner. We are asking the World War II veterans to sit at the head table, and after the dinner, as a program, you and the other World War II vets will tell us about things that you think would be of interest. Examples may be the duties, places you saw or traveled to, types of travel, memorable people you may have met, what made them memorable, something back home that was special to you. Then we'll open up to the floor. We'll do as a panel discussion things that you may be interested in, things that you may want to know about. I was mentioning before, I'm kind of interested in what they ate compared to what we ate in Vietnam. So, but that's the concept that we worked off of when we put this program together. So without further ado,
A lot of good experiences, and it was a good education.
what do you remember as a kid growing up during that era, during the World War II era?
Well, my mother and I used to go down and pick milk pods that they made life preservers out of. And we used to sell them and put them in them onion bags. And I think we got like $10 a bag for them. And I bought a couple of 25 or 1875 war bonds with them. When my wife got sick, I cashed them in so I could get a wheelchair for her. And it accumulated to where I got quite a bit of money for them. But gasoline, and when I was growing up, was everybody come in and got a buck's worth. They got 5 or 6 gallons for a buck. I worked in that little station in Medina, across from Perks, for all the way through high school. And
The grocery store there?
the grocery store was there. Well, that was a going little town years ago. There was a baker shop there. There was a blacksmith shop. There was a barber shop. Cheese factory, feed mill, a couple of auto repair places. North Medina Cheese Factory was there.
The trucking company? Trucking company was on that.
Yeah, there was there was a lot of stuff in over there. But and we used to, well, I imagine when these trains used to go through there, why they'd throw out their sea rations out the window. Well, sugar and that was scarce. Every once in a while, we'd find one of the big cases of that. Well, that's all that was edible out of one of them, was the sugar. God, that was terrible.
Cigarettes. You had cigarettes.
Well, I never smoked. My mother didn't smoke. You know, there was them little packs in there. There was
You
like
chewed?
4 or 5 in a pack.
Yeah, 4 cigarettes in a pack.
Well, there was only 5 kinds of cigarettes here. Camels, Lucky Strikes, Pall Mall, Marlboro, Chesterfield, Cools.
Did you deal with rationing back then?
Oh yeah, they were, yeah, a lot of, that's why I said we take the sugar out of it. Tires, you could only get 1 tire every so often, and
Gas was rationed. and
gasoline the same way. They had
Butter and.
A, B, and C stamps for the different things. And
Even shoes were rationed.
I don't remember that.
Silk stockings, yeah.
Gasoline,
But
have
oh, things, turned around and see how things went with the electronics from the time what grew up. My mother said she'd never see the day when they get to the moon. Well, she did see that. And, all this different stuff that has gone. Look how far this has gone in the last 20 years. You know, they see in the comic books where they said you'd talk on the telephone and see the person on the other end, and how you do it.
Dick Tracy with his wristwatch.
Yep.
Remember his wrist
Yep.
radio?
All this stuff has come true.
Would you explain to some of them when you said you collected milk pods for life preservers, and they maybe don't understand what you're talking about?
Yeah, we need clarification on that.
Yeah.
Well, evidently, what was in the pod must have them,
The silk.
the silk, they took out of there, and that's what they done with it. We don't know. You took them to a,
Maybe they don't know, it's a milkweed.
yeah,
expound on that?
and then they get that long thing on the top. You don't see them no more like we used to.
Like life preservers.
Yep,
White stuff.
the white's that silk
Yes,
is
sir.
in the middle.
I'd like to expound on that. My first ship in the Navy was the Battleship Missouri, and we used what we called K-Pot life preservers.
That was it.
And though they looked just like a regular life
Yeah.
preserver, but it was, what you're talking about was
Yep.
stuffing in those.
The silk out of the pod of the milkweed.
Correct.
And in Medina, along the railroad tracks going towards the old South Medina, and junction down there, why, along that there used to be a lot of them. Because we had no way of getting around, we used to walk all over and they pull them with a wagon. And we didn't have no money. My mother used to pay 50 cents a month off on the payment on the house. No interest. You know, and then turn around, if you had a quarter, you could go down and get all you wanted to eat for a quarter for 4 of us. Usually then, if Mrs. Stingle down in Medina there, she'd give you a free ice cream cone yet. Oh, things have really changed, without a doubt.
I just wanted to add, we were just coming out of a depression and then we were slapped into the war. The canned goods were rationed, and when we got through with them, we had to take both ends out and smash the plastic flat. And that was all gone into recycle. And then, like you said, gasoline and butter and food, and I think meat was rationed too a little bit, so.
Oh, yeah.
It was hard times, really, it didn't go easy.
What I wanna know is why you guys in World War II didn't eat up all those sea rations. We had to eat them up in Korea in 1950.
Because you're too skinny.
We wouldn't look like we do now if we would have lived on them.
Well, they taste very good. I'll never forget, I was very fussy. I would eat stew and all that stuff unless my mother made it. And all of a sudden I'm in Belgium during the war, and I've got my mess gear, all a bunch of that stuff piled on it, and I got my mess gear sitting on a Belgian manure pile. It wasn't ever good. I never noticed the manure or anything. I was hungry.
I was hoping you'd clarify that, which one you're eating.
You were eating.
Well, that was almost as bad as the shit on the shingle that we used to get at Thurl.
Frankie, you have a few words for us? You want the microphone? Want the mic?
Okay, what was the shit on the shingle?
Chip
Beef,
Fonto
fried
beef?
beef and gravy.
No. Hamburger and,
Yeah.
was the one that was shit on the shingle. Chip beef was creamed foreskin.
I swore I would never eat any more of it, but I know you would tell you, once in a while now it's
I thought it
pretty
was
good.
good too.
Green eggs, when they scrambled them, they weren't yellow, they were green.
That's because they weren't bad, they just cooked them too hard. If you cook eggs hard enough, you can get them green.
Right.
Well, I grew up in Stephenville, and my dad had a cheese factory, so I know what that was, hauling milk. 14 years old, driving a 1.5-ton truck hauling milk. Then I was drafted in 43. I went down to Florida for basic training, St. Petersburg. I come back, I was in school at Salute Field. I was in the Air Corps. And then I went to Fairfield, Ohio, Patterson Air Force Base. There I was a heavy equipment operator, so I drove everything. It didn't matter what. And I had one fortunate at Patterson Field. I saw Bob Hope's show. I don't know if any of you seen it? You did. Yeah, that was something to see. I met Jerry Corona.
Oh, yeah, he was still there when I was
Yeah,
there.
he,
He was still entertaining.
came down in the crowd and I had a chance to meet him. Then from there, I was stationed out Hillfield, Ogden, Utah. And I was ready to get on a train for Seattle, Washington when they dropped the bomb. And then I didn't have enough points to get out, so I ended up a year in Germany. When we took the boat over into the harbor, France, we had to zigzag in to get to harbor because all the ships that were sunk. And from there I went to Fürstenfeldbruck, Germany, near Munich. Then I had a chance to go through the concentration camp. That was in '46. The bodies were gone, but the rest of all there, that's something to see. Then from there I went to Stuttgart and then Frankfurt Air Force Base in Rhine, Maine. And from there, I had one day a captain come down and he said, I want a truck driver, and he said, I want you to carry a pistol. This was after the war. I said, what do you mean? He said, you just get in that truck and go along with me. We went up in the hills and backed up to a dock and come back down. I said, what are we hauling? He said, you got a full load of booze. No, he said, sometimes you like to try to hijack us. Well, when I got back to camp, he said, you look under your seat. Here was a bottle of old Granddad. Oh, we had a good time. Then at Frankfurt, I had the job of hauling beer from the brewery for the MPs, our captain outfit, our transportation, and then we had a Canadian outfit. Well, one day going down the road, MP pulled me over. He said, you're driving too fast. I said, I can't. I said, there's a governor on this truck. Well, he's going to give me a ticket. I said, that's all right. But I said, I got a load of beer, and there's 4 barrels in it, said for the MPs. I don't have to deliver it. He looked at me and said, get the hell out of here. Then from then, I went to Bremerhaven and came home.
You talk about times I done the same thing. I threw 300 cans of milk before I went to high school anymore, and I was driving at 14 years old, and I turned around and had to go get a driver's license. And later on, when Charlie Seidel was out there in Appleton, and he says, what do you want a license for? He said, you've been driving now for 5 years.
He told me that.
And all I had for a test, he says, what color is that sign on the wall? And that was the extent of my test. But I made up for it when I drove school bus and drove truck. You know, every 2 years, the whole works.
Come on, Bob.
I I was in high school in Hortonville, and then when I graduated the war, when I graduated, I turned 18, and then I had to sign up. That was in June, and by February, I was drafted. I just thought I'd go on with my life until they grabbed me, and of course they grabbed me. While I got through in high school, I went to the University of Wisconsin for 1 semester, and that's where I got jerked out of there. I was going to be an engineer, and when I got into the service, I went immediately to the West Coast, Fort Lewis, and had basic training, which is a place Ed and I have been back to, a month ago? We had a reunion, not of the basic training, but, and then after basic training, I was put into some specialty schools, and then they shut them down, and away I went to Camp Cook in California, and I ended up in the 11th Armored Division. It was a new division, just sort of started. And they had their basic training, and they had their maneuvers and stuff. And when they were just about ready to set up to go overseas, they didn't have a full complement of all they needed in it. So a bunch of us fellows were dumped in there. And so we went to Europe. I went over and I was kind of from New York, went on a kind of a scow of a boat. It was a boat that the British had. I was down in D-deck when they have that big opening in the top, they let big nets of stuff down. We were right in the very bottom there. I don't know if, and they had hammocks, you know, you strung yourself. I hated them. I still can't stand swings anyway. So I just slept on the duffel bags for about 16 nights going overseas. Yeah, well then when we got back towards Europe, it was very high seas because it was February or something, and the North Atlantic is kind of, I didn't get sick, but I was sure glad when I got off of it. And when we got close to England, all of a sudden, you know, we're in a convoy, but you don't know that. There's another boat way over there, another way. They were so far apart. Pretty soon a destroyer started weaving among us about 5 times our speed, and he started dropping death bombs towards us. And we had that rack up in the front of the boat, and with these little cans in there about, that long, that big around. And then we started lobbing them off. They used a steam catapult of some kind, and then the sea would boil. So we looked down off. I looked down off. I had already heard it. You see oil slick. We got them, and we didn't know got anything. Well, then we got to England, and I was fairly lucky to stay out of the war as long as I did that way, because some division got beat up ahead of us, and a bunch of our equipment. We were in a armored division. Everybody rides, nobody walks. And some of our equipment was taken away from us because another outfit needed it that got beat up. So we had to wait a little while in England. I got a pass to London, heard of V1 go over, or a couple of them. V1 sounds like anybody, there's nobody old enough here. You didn't have enough electricity on the farm. You bought a Maytag wash machine with a putt-putt engine on it. You had a foot thing that you'd pump until it started, and then it went putt-putt-putt-putt, and that would wash the clothing. And my God, I thought Adeline's Maytag was going over. And of course, all of a sudden it runs out of fuel and it drops. Well, then a little later on, it was more sophisticated. We heard some real big bangs. That was the V2s. Well, anyway, I got out of England then and went across the English Channel, and we were rushed across France. We had a Cherbourg. Now, I had a truck, a 6x6, beautiful truck. I loved it. And we landed, we didn't land on a dock, you just we had a landing ship tank, and they just dropped a thing down, and the front end dropped down, and you drove off on a beach, and we had it like mad. Come to find out, the Battle of the Bulge was going, and they needed a lot of people with a hurry. We were supposed to go quite a bit south of where we were. We don't know all this. You don't know anything in the service. I hope other guys feel as dumb as I did. And we got to across France rather quickly, and my goodness, all of a sudden we're going through a big place and a lot of buildings, lots of buildings. Pretty soon I looked up, there's the Arc de Triomphe in downtown Paris. Apparently in the old days they didn't have the, the outlying roads, the borderline roads. And you went right through downtown. So all of a sudden here we're going by this big beautiful arch. A little while later, we're heading northeast, and we end up in Reims. And there was this massive cathedral. It was the Reims Cathedral. I never did get into it, but I did go by it. Well, then pretty soon I'm getting closer to the battle itself. I'm in a little place called Neuchâtel, about 20 kilometers below Bastogne. Well, I didn't know what that was, but we soon found out that we had a problem that the Germans had really broken through, went right past Bastogne and went on, and so we just simply we came in from the bottom. The 4th Armored and the 11th Armored were in the bottom. But you look, we put something under a piece of glass here somewhere over there, and you look, you see there's how many armored divisions in that battle?
10.
10? No, it wasn't 10, was it?
Yes.
I don't know. But anyway, and all kinds of other divisions and artillery outfits. It's the biggest land battle the United States ever fought. And of course, between Russia and Germany, there were bigger battles. But yeah, well, I was in supply, and I said, well, I don't really want to drive truck all the time. Well, that's what you did all the time. And what did I haul? Gasoline. Gasoline in these 3-handled cans, jerry cans, we call them. And oh boy, did I handle a lot of that stuff. I was a much bigger guy years ago. But us little shrimps would be throwing them on the tailgate of that. Anybody knew Ed Fulcher out here had one of those old 6x6s. And we would throw them up there on the tailgate, and then climb up there and stack them, and go jump back down. But a lot of times I go back and there'd be the Red Ball Express there. Anybody hear of the Red Ball Express? That was black people, and they weren't allowed to be in a lot of our divisions, so they hauled our gasoline. Bunch of good guys. I would get up behind that and say, well, where are you from? Well, I'm Chicago. I said, well, I'm 200 some miles above you. We'd have nice visits. And then when we got to these depots, sometimes the railroad would bring it up to us, and sometimes it would be railroads, yeah. Let's see, was there anything else? Well, anyhow, how we got gas. Now, what did I haul the gas for? Not for the tanks, really. It was more for the radio trucks, because I was in signal company of the 11th Armored, and I hauled gasoline. And it was, I enjoyed it, because I had to go forward and find out where we were, and then I had to go backwards to find out where the dumps were. And then when you got the dump, you would go forward, but then you would move. After the Battle of the Bulge, things really moved. We went through the Magnet line and the Siegfried line and across the rivers. And sometimes I had the job of gas. Sometimes all of a sudden they said, here. And they bumped about a whole bunch of prisoners on the back of the truck, standing up. Took all their mess gears and bags and everything away from them. Then when they got them all so crowded on there, they told me to slam the brake. I should go ahead and slam on the brakes, and then that would pack some more on. And then they would throw their gear and their mess gears and stuff over the top, and they'd have to sort it out. I wouldn't do that. I was real easy about it. I could have really thrown them for a loop, but I didn't. I didn't believe in that. But anyway, that's how we moved on. Oh yeah, then first of all, I got into the Battle of the Bulge late, the terrible snowstorms. Well, I got in, and the snowstorms were letting up a little, but it was getting very cold. Oh, it was cold. And I didn't mind so much because I'm from northern Wisconsin, but some of the guys really suffered. And then when the well, yeah, I had trouble with my feet would burn every time I went to a shower all the next summer. I must have had chilblains or frostbite or something. But I wasn't near in bad shape as some of those guys. They just seemed to suffer terribly. But anyway, then the battle was on. Well, wait a minute, I missed something in there. One time I was at New Chateau waiting to go up towards Bastogne because we were kind of stalled a little. I happened to walk down a road and it thawed a little in between. And there a German soldier's body is stowing up and you could see his face and his body. He was, the snow was melting off of him. So, so I was in an area that had, I know it had a lot of battle. Oh, the sound of the battles. When I got there, the first thing you knew was that there was a battle going on up further because the artillery is going off at night. The sky was like, we have a storm in the distance, a lot of flashing out there, and light and the rumble of the bombs going off. Then I finally got out of Bastogne. I went through Bastogne, and being a wireman for the signal company, we, if a wire broke down or something, you didn't have a lineman go out there to try to find it. There were bundles of wire along the road. If you bundled them up tight, they'd be 10 inches across, just one big bale of wire. Somebody made a lot of money selling wire after that. But anyway, Bastogne, we got through there and went on and went through the lines, the German lines and the stuff, and went and we moved pretty fast across Europe. In fact, we moved so fast that armored divisions just went way out ahead. It was nothing to have we were at an intersection one time and a whole bunch of people, natives were there, and we wondered what was wrong. They said, well, we can't. We're frightened to death. They said at night we have the SS come down into town. We said we should take those little flags off our gables of our houses and our barns because otherwise they'll kill us. And then when in the daytime we said, well, we'll catch our infantry will catch up pretty fast. And we lied because we didn't know when they were going to show up because we were moving too fast for the infantry and stuff to mop up a lot. And I was in Patton's, General Patton's army, and he wouldn't stop. He just went. A little scary, but we didn't have a lot of. I saw then as we got in. I went through Frankfurt. It was all burnt up. There were just walls. We firebombed it, and that was a terrible thing. There were no, and then all of a sudden we were trying to get through the town at night, and there are no lights, no nothing. So we tried to get through the town and could hardly get through. Finally, we decided, well, we better find a place to rest overnight. It was a long shot. It wasn't prisoners, it was actually going back to company equipment, like athletic equipment and cards and stuff. You gotta take things along with your volleyballs and stuff because when the guys are not doing anything, they're restless. You gotta have all this stuff along. And I would supply. We always got that stuff up with the rest of the guys. And so we,
Talk about the bombing at night or?
Yeah, well, we would, during the day, of course, everything was pretty good, but at night we'd worry about what we called Sandman Charlie. It was a lone plane going over, and the United States controlled the air, let's face it, pretty much, but you never know. There were some incidents. I saw a dogfight in the distance, be like being here in Hortonville and looking over towards New London and seeing some planes diving at each other. It it was so far away I couldn't hear what they were really shooting or what they were doing, but it was a dogfight out there, and the Germans were encountering some of our guys. So it was always really strange stuff. One time we get into a town, and oh my gosh, there are a bunch of people, men in striped suits, vertical stripes. I don't know what the two colors were, white and gray or something. And the problem was they didn't have hair. They had fuzz. They didn't have whiskers. They had fuzz. And their legs were about as big as around us. They were going to die. Let's put it that way. They were half dead, and they were so happy to get out of that. No, that was another prison camp. Later on, our division released Mauthausen in Austria, and the ships, they had awful time with these fellows. They were at the prison camps. I just happened to finish a book about a week ago, or less, a 600-page book about 1944. That's when the big things were happening like that, and thousands of German not the soldiers, the Jews and the gypsies and people were taken in and gassed. They just put a whole batch of them in a big room, dropped some cyanide or something, whatever it was, out of the ceiling. They'd all die. Then they would be pitched out of there and incinerated. And then a new batch would go in. This was going on 24 hours a day in quite a few different places. I didn't know about it. I just saw these fellows that looked like skeletons. I had a lot of good luck in the sense of the word. I got into Beirut and saw the places where the Nazis had their great big celebrations with big long banners hanging down from the buildings with swastikas. And I got one of them. And because I'd walk through there and there one was, I'd take it. But what's that? There's just so many things that you observe. It was just mind-boggling what I was seeing every day. Finally, we got down through southern Germany, and then we ended up in Austria, and it was, and the war was over. And then I found out that our division, I was hauling gasoline and stuff. I couldn't do it, but there was a place called Mauthausen and Gusen. Anybody remember those words, Gusen or Mauthausen? I just read in this book that we were taking most of Germany over, so they took one of the big furnaces that they burnt people in and hauled it over to Mauthausen because that was further back, and they were going to reuse it. I just happened to read that, but it was a horrible war. It really was. I can't believe what everything I saw. You just can't. Everything just crosses your eyes. The terror of the horror of human beings being that way to each other is just unbelievable. It's horrible. I guess I'll let you go. Does you got any question?
Well, I don't have any wartime stories, I just got a few Ed stories. I was drafted into the Army on December 7th, 1945. I went to Fort Sheridan, Illinois for induction, received our shots and government issues and so forth, no rifles. Spent the rest of December there on fire watch at night and orientation days. We shipped out the first part of January to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin for basic training. When we arrived there at 3 a.m., 25 below zero, the MPs were waiting for us to get off the train. Everyone had to dump out our duffel bags in the snow. MPs kicked all our clothes around, apart, didn't find anything. Put your clothes back in the snow and get out of here. Back and move on. They were missing some Army Colt revolvers from Fort Sheridan and thought someone on the troop train had them. We never did find out if they found them. The month of January was cold, 35 below zero every day, every night, and warmed up to 10 below in the daytime. It was nice marching to keep warm, but some days we had orientation half days. We had to stand out in the snow for 3 or 4 hours and wait for somebody to come and orientation us. We were issued broom handles for replacing rifles that were non-existent. They sent all them to Europe for the invasion. After basic training, I was assigned to a station hospital, eye, ear, nose, and throat clinic as a doctor's aid man. 6 months later, the clinic was shut down. I was transferred to the mess hall, permanent KP. We had a small company, 175 men. My duties were involved to aid the mess sergeant, keep the German PWs busy, and the PWs were good cooks, but sometimes they got a little lazy. As long as I kept them supplied with Hershey candy bars and Camel cigarettes, they would do anything for me. Our mess hall consisted of 20 picnic tables, kitchens with wood ranges, 8 of them, and a food storage building next door. I worked 24 on and 24 off. I worked and slept on the picnic tables close to the kitchen to keep warm, had to keep the stoves going all night and wake up the cooks at 3 o'clock in the morning. And one morning about 2 o'clock I woke up. I was awakened by a noise outside. So I opened the door and I looked outside in the mess hall. There was a car parked there with a trunk up. So I walked out like a dummy. I walked out without no arms, encountered someone coming out of the storage building with a bag of sugar. It was rationed, put it in the trunk of his car. I said, "What's going on here?" It was our company commander. He said, "Soldier, go back in the mess hall, go to sleep. You did not see anything." "Yes, sir." After that, the company commander and I were buddy-buddy. After a year at camp was closed, I received Army training. National Guard only was transferred back to Fort Sheridan to work in a separation center for 3 months. The center was slowed down. I was transferred to Fort Lawton, Washington for the last 3 months of my tour. Fort Lawton was a segregated camp, unknown to me. The first night there, I went to the PX across the street from our barracks to get cigarettes. The clerk was black, ordered a pack of cigarettes. They said, "Out." I said, "I want a pack of cigarettes." He said, "I said out." 2 black guys come pick me up, carried me out to the middle of the road and said, "That half of the road is yours, this half is ours." So next morning, reveille, I said to the first sergeant, I said, "What's the deal on this PX across the street?" He said, "You didn't go over there, did you?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "I walked over, but I didn't have to walk back." He said, "You're lucky you're here. That's off limits. The camp is segregated." I didn't know what that meant. They knew I was a greenhorn, though. They sent me over there as a decoy, and that's why I was not harmed. After that, I was there 2 days, and I got laryngitis. I couldn't talk. At reveille, the first sergeant said I should go back to the barracks. So I went back to the barracks, went to Went in the sack, lo and behold, 10 o'clock, we had a general inspection. Lieutenant grabbed me by the collar and shook me up. Get out of that sack. He says, what are you doing in there? I told him I couldn't talk. He thought I was pulling his leg. So he starts shaking me up, and the general looked at him. He says, Lieutenant, he says, leave that soldier alone, he says. Get the Jeep over here and we'll take him down to the station hospital. So I got a ride in the general's Jeep with the general. We went down to the station hospital. When we arrived there, the hospital said, we're full, General. We have no room for no more patients. The general said, I said admit this soldier now. So I got in the hospital. I received penicillin. The next day I was on the go. I said, can I go now? They said, no, you can't go. The general admitted you. The general admitted you, and the general has to release you. Well, the general went to Washington for 3 weeks. Here I was stranded in the hospital, and I had a ball. I went from all the patients I visited and all the patients. The busiest part of the hospital, patients were in the VD ward. That was always full. I was discharged from Fort Lawton on July 7th, 1947. I came back to Hortonville, and here I am. I stayed in Hortonville all my life, worked here, retired here, gonna die here.
How about, let's talk maybe about transportation. What was one of the big things that was developed not only in Europe, but also here in the United States?
The Autobahn to the interstate.
Autobahns and the interstates. Does anybody remember why they were developed?
Give people work.
The Autobahn was developed by Adolf Hitler.
To move the troops.
The Autobahn,
Power brought that technology back here in our country and moved people across country.
the first Autobahns were actually landing strips. The Germans would have, on the edge of an Autobahn in the woods, they would have planes, so they could take off from Autobahns. It was partly airports for the Germans, but they did have good high-speed roads. General Eisenhower, who was my superior commander, of course, he immediately got to be President of the United States, and he put in a program to have the interstate system so that we'd have Autobahns in the United States, because he liked them. Now, I did a lot of driving in Germany, but I never got to use an Autobahn more than a couple times, because we used back roads. I don't think we're just trying to avoid the big stuff being blown up or anything, but we just used back roads.
Sure.
This Battle of the Bulge went into Belgium and across Luxembourg. So, being as what I was in the Battle of the Bulge, Luxembourg and Belgium invites us to come to their embassy in
Washington, D.C.
in Washington, D.C. And Ed and I had
16th of December.
16th of December, that's coming up, that's the beginning of the battle. And they invite us to their embassy. We have good Belgium beer, and we have good Belgium chocolate. And they just treat us royally. And a big, nice meal. And one kind of guy, kind of important uniform on, the Belgium. And one of the first years I went to it, I thought, oh my God. I said, what are you doing this for? He says, we can't do enough. And he said, we know what somebody here said. If you hadn't gotten Hitler stopped, he was going to have what he called the 1,000-year right. They were going to control, and they knew that. And their children knew that. And these people that I'm talking to are not veterans. They're second and third generation, and they talk so seriously to you, they almost cry. They think it was so important that they were released from this devil. It's amazing how they treat us. Like I say, the beer was very good. I don't think we're gonna go back this year. We didn't go last year.
How do you know the beer's still there?
Yeah, they're just, one year, we didn't do it. They would bring a plane over here, or a couple of them, load us up, take us there for how many days? 10 days? Some- And bring us back free, but we didn't do it. They just can't get over the fact that they were not under this horrible 100-year Reich of Hitler's.
Any other thoughts before we move
Well,
on with?
I think we have to remember that World War II was a time when it's just amazing. I was in high school, grade school, then high school, and all of a sudden, like you're saying earlier, Japan was in China, Mussolini was in Africa, Hitler was taking all the places around Germany, the Saar Valley, what do you call it? And then finally going into Poland and into Czechoslovakia. I just loved Czechoslovakia. When he went in there, I just sick. And you just thought, the world has just gone nuts. And we got through it. It was an amazing period.
I got these certificates when I was still commander, but now Chuck is the commander. But we wanted to wait until tonight to give out these awards. But I have 4 of them, but there's only one here. Roger Mulroy has 50 years in this Legion post, but he couldn't make it tonight. And Ronald Hoyman also has 50 years in this post. Francis Schmetzel also has 50 years. This person is here. This person has 70 years in this post.
Wow.
Does anybody know who that person is?
Is it right?
Would you like to stand up, Bob? This certificate is from the Legion out of headquarters. It says, issued in a grateful appreciation for your faithful and dedicated allegiance to the ideals of the American Legion. Be it known that Robert Snyder, a longtime and dedicated member of the American Legion Post 55, Department of Wisconsin, has been certified to have been a member in good standings continuously for 70 years. And it be further known that such record of consistent loyalty to the American Legion merits the honor of being cited as an outstanding contributor to the programs of the American Legion. To witness whereof this testimonial of personal gratitude is given under the hand of the National Commander and duly assessed by the National Adjutant this 15th day of March 2016.
I'll have to go home and check my records. This doesn't seem right.
And before everybody runs away, he's already got it. I need Captain Randy Baumgart to come up. He has some awards.
All right, this is kind of special. Before I give these awards, I'm currently, if you don't know, still in the military. I'm a supply officer, so some of my background of learning was about the Red Ball Express. And just to give an idea of how far we've come, imagine those jerry cans he talked about, stacked nice and neat, from that wall at least to here, and probably from the wall out to those pillars. Stacked. That was our fuel depots along the road. Now we have 5,000 gallon tankers. We have 20,000 gallon bladders to set up fuel farms. We learned a lot from falling behind on our supply throughout the world.
Hold a little more than those 7 gallons,
A lot more. This is a little dedication. Those of you in the military, veterans, stand at attention.
Attention to orders.
Attention to orders. For the following: Edward Dorn, Franklin Rosler, sorry, Robert Schneider. To you who answered the call of your country and served in its armed forces to bring about the total defeat of the enemy, I extend the heartfelt thanks of a grateful nation. As one of the nation's finest, you undertook the most severe task and can be called upon to perform, because you demonstrated the fortitude, resourcefulness, and calm judgment necessary to carry out that task. We now look to you for leadership and example in further exalting our country in peace. Signed, Harry Truman. You are each awarded the World War II Victory Medal.
On behalf of Congressman Riddle, thank you very much for your service to the country. Robert, on behalf of Congressman Riddle and the country, thank you very much for your service to the country. Frank, on behalf of Congressman Riddle, thank you very much for your service to the country, sir.